Whenever a person is out traveling, I think one of the places that can be the most easily overlooked are the county museums. But in my own personal experience, I have found the county museums to be really amongst some of the best sources of really interesting artifacts and local history that helps tell a larger story. Well, today I am in Sheridan, Arkansas. It's about, I don't know, maybe a half hour, 45 minutes south of Little Rock. And my friend Brandon from the YouTube channel Digging on Faith invited me to come out to this place right here. This is the Grant County Museum. And he was telling me about all of the different things that they have in this museum, and also a pretty interesting story of something that happened during World War II very close to this location that we're going to be going and checking out after we go through this spot. So we just got in here into the Grant County Museum, and already I can tell that I'm going to like this place. We have lots of taxidermy. We have lots of relics like old fishing reels and this old boat motor. So they're already appealing to the outdoorsman in me with what they have here in this museum. So this is pretty cool here. They have some old fishing gear, some antique rods and reels and lures. Kind of a fun fact, there was a point in my life where I collected a lot of this kind of stuff and then kind of got out of it. But it is fascinating to me to look at all of these old pieces of sportsman's gear that people used in years past. All right, there's a lot to see here, so we're going to go ahead and move on. One thing I like about these museums is some of the local stories that you get. So they have a story attached to, the guy who took this moose. I always love looking at old pictures. So here's an old picture from the 1930s of some guys that shot a couple turkeys. Just a cool classic picture there. And the one that really caught my eye was this thing right here. Really, I say it caught my eye. Brandon is the one who pointed it out to me. This is a mastodon bone that was recovered by a guy named Homer Wright while he was out hunting. It says that it's 41 inches long and weighs 28 pounds. Pretty crazy. Oh, and we also have an alligator snapping turtle here. I never look at one of these things without thinking about how horrific it would be to have your finger bit off by one of these. I don't know why I always think that, but they are a exceptionally cranky creature. Okay, so we're going to do just a quick walk through here. This portion of the museum is showing a bunch of like old farming implements and artifacts that show what life would have been like, in the 1800s or early 1900s. So we don't have enough time, unfortunately, to show everything, but we'll pick out some of the few things that may jump out at us. And guns. We never pass up an opportunity to take a look at a firearm. This is kind of a neat display that they have here, talking about house place dumps. So you've heard the phrase that one man's trash is another man's treasure. Well, in these trash dumps, we can now go excavate them and find all kinds of things that give us a little bit of information about the past. So in addition to these trash dumps, old wells are another kind of treasure trove of some of these old jars and bottles and implements and all kinds of different things that people used in the past. Yeah, I like that they've done this. moving in now to the Civil War room here at the Grant County Museum. Now, there was a battle that was fought in this vicinity called the Battle of Jenkins Ferry. I know a little bit about the Battle of Jenkins Ferry. The man who knows more about it is this guy right here. This is Brandon Sutton. He has a channel that's fairly new called Digging on Faith, which is really, really good. And he's the one who invited me here. So anyway, he's donated some items to this museum, so I'm going to have him show a few things.
So I've donated a couple of things which I have not found, but have acquired in the past and have donated to the museum. The first being a scarificator, which was a medical device that had 12 spring-loaded blades in it, which when a soldier was wounded and maybe had an infection, those blades would be sprung into the skin, lacerated, and then fluids would then drain from the wound.
Dang. Kind of a benign looking little box, but that thing is a little bit unsettling. Oh man, here's something else that they have in here that is an interesting and yet sad reminder of our past in this country. These are some slave sale documents. Wow. Here's something that is really interesting to me that's kind of like history on top of history. Here we have some old artillery shells that were found on the battlefield from Jenkins Ferry, and also a picture of some of the men who found them. This was taken in 1952, so it's kind of pretty cool to see that within a century of the battle they were digging up relics, and those relics are still being recovered today.
Okay, so here we have a Union officer's stencil kit. Some of the letters are here. So this was found by my friend Megs Brainerd back in the 70s or late 70s, early 80s. So it was found in an area where the Union troops were retreating back to Little Rock, and over 300 wagons were burned, and a lot of the contents were thrown outside the wagons and left for relic hunters to find in the future. And so, but yeah, this is a wonderful piece of history. I'm glad to have been able to donate this to the museum.
All right, now there are a ton of artifacts in this room related to the Battle of Jenkins Ferry. We're going to save the rest of this for another day, because Brandon and I have some plans where we're going to actually go out to the battle site. So we'll come back to this place another time, but got a few other rooms that I want to show. As I've mentioned, there's just simply not enough time to see everything in this museum. It is stunning what all they have in here. But if you are into old vehicles, well, they have something here for you as well. Oh, this looks like a old Model A. Yep, 1928 Model A Ford truck. Here's one thing that I really like about going to these county museums is in a lot of cases they bring things down to a very personal level. So you're going to hear stories about men and women from that particular county, which helps you to put together pieces and understand the bigger picture. So I'm entering into the World War II room here in the Grant County Museum, and oh my gosh, they actually have a lot of cool stuff in here. Oh, and we can't really talk about World War II without talking about the granddaddy of all World War II weapons, and that is the M1 Garand, my favorite rifle of all time. Looks like, yeah, they also have an M1 carbine in here, as well as an instruction manual. Here's kind of a cool little display setup that they have. They have, the kind of a bunk setup here, showing what might have been inside an army barracks, and Something else that also adds more of a personal touch is they have this desk set up with some letters from local men who served and wrote home during the war. Yeah, I like that touch that they've put on this. One of the things that we've talked about on this channel before are bring-back items and souvenirs and war trophies that were brought back by U.S. soldiers during World War II. Well, this is a German Army winter coat that was brought back by somebody. And then take a look at this. So here is a German helmet that was brought back by a guy named Fred Paxton. And it says here that he found it in Normandy, sent it to his mother, so that she could use it as a flower pot. Interesting. And here are a few more bring back items. So we have this signed Japanese flag that obviously would have been brought back from the Pacific Theater. A couple of Arisakas. Looks like we've got a Type 38 there on top. And oh wow, have a Type 2 paratrooper rifle there on the bottom. And British Enfield sniper rifle. They also have Russian light machine gun. This one was nicknamed the record player. But here's what I found to be the most eye-catching. And there's a little bit of a reflection, so it might be hard to see. This is obviously a U.S. flag. What makes this one notable is that it was flown in Normandy on D-Day. Look at all of the Arisakas, and I've looked at them closer, and a lot of them have the full mums too. I'm actually kind of drooling right now. Wow, this is pretty impactful here. These are photographs that were submitted of all of the men, and I see a few women in here who served from this area in World War II. Wow. All right, now whenever I'm talking about local stories that tell a larger story, this is a perfect example. This gentleman right here, his name is Gene MacDonald. And Gene MacDonald was taken prisoner by the Japanese whenever the Japanese invaded Bataan. So you can see that Western Union telegram back there informing his family that he had been taken as a POW by the Japanese government. Here's a card that talks about how he's in good health. Here are his dog tags, some of the items that he used whenever he was at Bilibid prison. Oh wow, look at this. I just saw this. Here's a map that was scratched on the lid of a mess kit by a fellow prisoner, and that shows the peninsula of Bataan. And then if you go down here, well, here is Gene MacDonald's uniform. He was also captured in a picture that was shown in Life magazine. So if you look at that red arrow, there's Gene MacDonald at the prison. You can see how emaciated he looks. Here's something else that they have here that is crazy. Here's the piece of cloth that he wore while he was in prison, and he had been wounded in the leg. I don't know if I said that already. His leg eventually had to be amputated, and they also have on display his prosthetic leg. That is stunning. All right, this museum legitimately is pretty fascinating. They have a lot here. Now, there's one primary reason why I wanted to come to this particular museum. Brandon was telling me this story about a B-17 during World War II that had experienced all kinds of mechanical problems and had been condemned, but they decided to fly it from Salina, Kansas down to Florida so that the crew could catch up with the squadron. Tragically, the mechanical problems ended up catching up with them, and the plane, long story short, crashed very close to the museum here. Unfortunately, it killed the entire crew. And here at the museum, they have a large collection of the wreckage that was salvaged from the crash site. Well, here is one of the pieces that was recovered from the crash site. This is the turbo supercharger, and obviously you can see that it sustained some damage in the crash. And then if you go over here, well, they have this, I guess you would call it a bin, or this holding container with, here's an oxygen tank. It says that there would have been at least 18 of these on the B-17. And then here we can see some gears, pieces of window, just all sorts of metal scraps that were recovered from the crash site, including this .50 caliber. Man, this is just so sad. Here are pictures of some of the crewmen who were killed in that crash. Men like David Sikorsky, Kenneth Kane, Peter Ivanovich, Leo Dolan. And what really kind of brings this home and makes it real is that whenever you look in here, well, here are dog tags that were recovered from the crash site, as well as some .50 caliber machine gun bullets, some insignia, and just other scraps. Man, how sad. All right, so that was the Grant County Museum, and holy smokes, I was not expecting what we were going to see in there. That was pretty phenomenal. That's a very, very well done museum. Okay, so for right now, we talked about the B-17 crash. The actual spot where the bomber crashed is not too far from here. So we're gonna go down and do a little bit of exploring and see what else we can learn while we're here.